Happy Hour, everybody. Welcome to the March LinkedBanker Happy Hour. I am already joined by Josh, who is on the road, and we've been experimenting with a little restream settings on the back end and actually realized that we could have some pre-conference / happy hour chit chat before we go live. So anyway, good to know, and glad I wasn't saying anything incriminating because Josh would have heard it all. But excited for our March happy hour. I feel like I should have the background adorned in shamrocks, Guinness beer, and Reuben sandwiches, but that didn't happen for today's happy hour. But we're going live again. We go live the second Thursday of every month at 5 p.m. Eastern time, and these happy hours are designed to just bring people together that are in the banking and the financial services space to chat about stuff that you're interested in and to kind of share stories and go through your week, your month, what's on your mind. And if you are interested in coming up on stage and being part of today's discussion, even if you're driving, although I know Josh has got his eyes forward and he's just listening, so he's being very careful. If you go to www.thelinkedbanker.com /happy hour. That will get you to our happy hour page. Scroll down, you can click the button to join the live stream, and that will bring you in. I will see you in the waiting room, and you can hop on and be part of today's discussion, talk about what's on your mind, share, be part of the conversation. So Josh, I know you normally don't get a chance to be with us for the entire hour, but you're on your way home. I'm excited that you're here. It's been a while since we've connected. Anything on your mind that you want to bring up from a happy hour chit chat perspective? Let's dive in and see what you're thinking about.
Yeah, I certainly have my opinions on this topic, but I'd like to open it to the rest of the floor. I think it's becoming more and more pertinent. Some search engine optimization, but for AI.
Yes.
So some AEO, some GEO.
Yeah.
Talk about some of that.
EIO. Yeah. All that. it
Farmer,
depends. Yeah, exactly. So happy St. Pat's Day to you, Craig. You need to click the link and come up on stage, my friend. Come join us and be part of the conversation. It's been a while. So if you're interested, there's the link for you. But good to see you in the audience. Yeah, so one of the things I'll give our founder and over in WSI world, Dan Monahan, wrote a book recently called The AI Search Revolution. There's his lovely picture. Dan and I actually were together last February at the IFA conference out in Vegas. We both got some nice accolades, and it was cool to be up there. Dan started WSI in 1995, which when I was still in the community banking world was the year that I actually built my first website, marshallsavings.com. So we started down the web and internet superhighway, information superhighway path at the same time. We just didn't know it. But Dan's book is one that kind of paints the picture around AI SEO. We've been calling within the WSI world, we've got a term we refer to it as adaptive SEO, and that really hasn't stuck. It's more of an internal term for us, but it's and here comes Craig. Hold on just a second. Ask and ye shall receive, right? Hey, Craig. I guess I better be careful what I wish for, huh?
It's right.
Yeah, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So the adaptive SEO kind of came around, I would say, maybe 5 or 6 years ago as we started seeing some things just in traditional SEO shifting. Google started kind of leaning into their EAT algorithm elements, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, and then they add experience to it, or it was they had experience and then they added expertise, but now it's EEAT. And so in the world of AI focused, there are things that these language models are starting to do. Obviously, we know that they go crawl pretty much anything and everything that they can get their grubby little paws on and consume that content and bring it in. And if you're looking for ways to be visible, um, being as intentional as you can with your blog articles. And one of the things our corporate office has done, and what we're starting to do within our office on our WSI blog, is we're really leaning into like 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 word articles. We are providing author page references. So anytime we post a blog, we've got who it's written by, and most of them are written by me, although Ellie's got some articles in there, our director of marketing. So we've got that attribution as to who it's from. One of the other signals that is starting to show signs is kind of validating the trustworthiness of your organization through things like testimonials and references and customer, or in your case, Josh, member quotes. So people that have used you that can be woven in. The AI is picking up on that and determining, if you can even do it from a video testimonial, that's probably even better. The other structural elements of our content, we're also providing a quick summary at the top, so that if a language model visits the page, it can quickly get a summary of what the article is all about. And even going so far as to put like an audio summary. So the article itself is being read back. We're using the plugin from 11 Labs. We've trained it on my voice for any of the articles that I write. Ellie hasn't trained her voice yet. So any of the articles that she's got, we pick a really great voice that the 11 Labs platform has in its repository. But the articles that I'm writing sound like I'm actually reading them back to you. And I even had an individual comment the other day, like, when do you find time to record all of those? Because it sounded exactly like me. And I'm like, AI, hello. So there's that rich media, that audio element. And then inside of the actual article itself, to help the human readers, we're starting to do little anchor references to the heading element. So if it's an H2 or an H3, you now have a table of contents that allows for you to scroll up and down. And wrapping up the actual blog article itself, we're putting in some frequently asked questions. So after we write the article, we go back and say, okay, let's summarize this. What does it mean? What are the key takeaways? What are the FAQs, which are structured more around the questions that somebody would likely be typing into a large language model, to try to get a sense of, okay, how does it quickly answer that question in the actual content that's on the page that the LLM or the search engine, Google, let's just call it what it is. And Josh has bounced, but maybe he's still listening. But that's really kind of the nuts and the bolts of it. I would say the other thing that is a good test. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering how you stack up, oh, here he comes. So lost you, but you're back. So one of the things that you can test is hop into your preferred language model of choice and ask it a question about what you would like to be found for. And so one of the examples I like to give to my banking customers, and I tend to be more on the let's give it a long prompt, because that's what people are starting to prompt, is instead of going in and saying mortgage loans for new doctors, for example, because that's how we would talk to Google. What people are now doing is they're going into the language model and they're saying, hey, I just graduated from medical school. I moved to Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm interested in buying a house. I know my debt to income ratios are going to be crazy because I've got all this student debt, but I just got hired by blah, blah, blah healthcare system. I've got a great job with good income. What community banks, what credit unions, what mortgage companies, where could I go to get a mortgage loan? And then sit back and see what it says. And if your bank doesn't show up or your institution doesn't show up in that listing, most of the time people are going to jump in and go, hey, why didn't my bank get listed? And AI wants to make you feel good. So it is going to come back and go, oh, my apologies. Yes, you actually are a really good bank, and I should have included you. And looks like you do offer some really great mortgage products. And so you're going to kind of bait the LLM in order to answer the question the way that it thinks that it needs to answer to make you happy. What I challenge people to do is, instead of going right to that question, like, why didn't you include me? Follow up and say, what were the reasons you selected the ones that you did? So you can get a sense of crawling into the head of the language model. And if it came back with Rocket Mortgage, well, why did you pick Rocket Mortgage when I specifically asked for a community bank or a community lender or a community institution? Why did you pick Rocket Mortgage? And it'll come back and it'll tell you why. Well, most of the time, blah, 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 online convenience, interactive calculators. I found some reviews for people that live in the Grand Rapids area. So I thought that would be relevant. And then you go through and see, well, what are all of the items that led to the decision to bring those up? And then you go back and you take a look at your own site. You look in the mirror and you say, do I have these things? Am I producing the content? Do I have as many testimonials? Do I have all of these reviews? And if not, you now have the ability to essentially develop your own process. And while you're in that conversation, you can go in and say, okay, now full disclosure, I work for XYZ. Compared to what you just showed me, review my website and my online presence, tell me why I wasn't selected. And then you can even go to the next level and say, help me build a plan. So over the next 3 to 6 months, I'll have a better shot of being found, and almost use that. If you want to try to do the SEO yourself, it will kind of walk you through some of the suggestions. Doesn't guarantee that you're going to, be the number one as soon as you get done following all of its instructions, but at least you're asking it to peek behind the curtain. And that's not something that you can do with a Google search result. If somebody shows up in the number 1 or number 2 position, you can't go to Google and go, hey, Google, why did you put, such and such at number 1? You just got to go into the algorithm and try to figure it out, and all 200 plus signals and trial and error. So those are some of the thoughts that I had as it relates to AI powered search engine optimization. So any of those hit home for you, or anything else that you've been thinking of that I didn't mention? And then I'm curious what Craig thinks, because you got a little bit of marketing brain to you too.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, on the agency side, that's something that we've actually been recording and reporting to our clients, is how many times they're showing up in there. And
Yep.
to your suggestion, the long form content has kind of been the key. We've been adjusting and manipulating that to purposefully show up more. And we've seen an increase in AI traffic to the site. We saw an increase just over time in general, but then us following that strategy really saw a spike in traffic from those crawls from the AI.
Yep. So inside of analytics, you're going to start hopefully seeing some of those referring sites. You got to dig a little bit deeper inside of GA4 to get access to those, but you'll be able to see, Perplexity sending you traffic, ChatGPT sending you traffic, Google and Google AI overviews. I don't know as if there's a tremendous differentiation inside of GA4 at this point. But we're starting to see some signals from Perplexity and ChatGPT for our clients as well. So I've got one other idea that I want to mention, but I want to let Craig get a word in edgewise and see if you've got any thoughts on this.
Well, first off, thanks for having me up on the panel. This is a great, absolutely fantastic discussion. I actually have a question. So as you're training up these LLMs, do you have to go buy LLMs? So you've got to load all this in Perplexity, load all this in Claude, load all this in Base 44. Do you have to go through each individual one?
No. Perplexity used to give you the ability to create Perplexity pages. I don't want to say they were like Wikipedia pages, because that would be misleading, but it gave you the ability to go in. You could create some information, you could save it as a page, and you could submit for review. Those don't exist the way that they did, and they've kind of changed the way they're doing that. We feel, because our SEO team, we just had a conversation on this a few days ago. I think they're making some changes, possibly looking at a way to do that with maybe some monetization. You probably have all heard that, ChatGPT is rolling out advertising, and it's free and it's low tier paid version. If you're paying $20 or more a month, you're not going to see ads. But if you're using the free version of ChatGPT, or I can't remember what the light version is called, but it's like $8 a month versus 20, you're going to get hit with ads. And so, you could buy your way in. Minimum spend is like $200,000 a month, from what I understand. So it's out of the reach for most, if not every single one of the clients that we work with, even if they pooled their money. I don't have anybody that's spending anywhere close to 200 grand a month. That would be amazingly awesome if that were the case. But they're eventually going to give people to buy their way in. Google and Claude have both come out and said, we're not going to ever sell ads inside of our platform. I think philosophically that goes against Claude's constitution and what drives its reason and how it runs AI. And Google's probably, we don't need to, because we make a crap ton of money in all sorts of other areas. That's, OpenAI doesn't have that revenue model like, those others have. So buying your way in may be an option. Like anything else, the costs are eventually going to come down, and maybe that'll be a way to be able to get some visibility. Yeah. So on that side, the other thing, and Josh, since you mentioned you guys are reporting that to your clients, what we've started to see, and we've watched it, and I've heard it from other podcasts and whatnot, is the amount of overall traffic coming to websites is on the decline because of page zero answers and people getting their information without having to visit a website. But the content that shows up, or I guess the visitors that show up to read the content that's on your site, are more qualified, and they tend to be interacting a little bit more because they've gone through all of that. They've learned, they've educated themselves. And then when they eventually show up, they're in a better mindset to actually buy and do something, whether it's clicking a button, going to an application, downloading a form, filling out something. Have you started to see some of that with your clients as well?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. Exact same story. So the people that are there are definitely engaging more than they had previously, and I think it's for all the reasons that you just said. They're doing their homework ahead of time. By the time they get there, they know what they're going to do, and they're there to do it.
Yep. Yeah. So cool. We got a message from Justin. Great call, and I'm really looking into referral sources and identifying traffic from generative AI. Justin and I got to hang out. He's got a new role over at the ICBA. He was a community banker in Indiana and went over to play on the fintechy side of the fence. So got to see him up on stage in San Diego, and it was pretty cool to see you. So excellent to see you on. If you want to come up and be part of the conversation like Craig just did, there's easy ways to do that. So and then hello from Birmingham, Alabama. Greetings. Good to see you down there. I suspect you're probably not going to be looking forward to a lot of snow like we are here up in northern Michigan. And also Collier says, boo to the advertising. I would agree. But the other thing that I remind people is, even when Facebook showed up back in the day, if you're not paying for the service, you are the payment for the service. And so with the free version of ChatGPT, you're using it for free. They're going to try to squeeze a little bit of money out of you, and that means you're going to get to look at ads. So also, if you're using the free version, realize that the models that you have access to are likely 6 months or more behind. So you're not going to be getting the most recent version of the AI models. So it's not doing as much as the paid models are. You're also limited on the capacity. So your token window is going to be a lot smaller. So you can't have as deep conversations. And then you can't turn off, in most of the cases, the learning that happens, which means everything that you put into the model is going to be used to train the model. So not only are you subjecting yourself to potential advertising when that starts rolling out more formally, but whatever you put into the system is going back into the system to make it smarter. So we should never be putting in personal, sensitive, confidential stuff into any public model. But know that you're even more at risk because that information is going right into the model and used for training. So just be careful on that. That's all I got to say on that. So other thoughts regarding AI visibility and SEO and maybe another tangent angle from a AI perspective. I'm curious, have you been playing with Claude Code or Cowork, or did you jump into the Lobster Fest and mess around with OpenClaw at all? I stayed away, but I know others didn't. So curious on that.
I've been messing around a little bit with Claude. My former boss that you remember, Will McGinnis.
Yep.
Him and I were on the phone earlier today, and he was showing me how to go back and forth from Claude to ChatGPT to help code a website.
Yeah.
And spin that up. Like, it was so quick and it looked really good. Now there's little nuances, right, that weren't right, but using Claude, but also using two AI services to kind of go back and forth to make sure I was tightening up what I was saying in order to get the output I want. You know, it's like you kind of, mentioned when you started this, is like all about the prompting is so key, and how you're prompting it and how you're extracting the data that you want from it. Yep. But you'd mentioned something I was hoping to maybe double click a little bit on. Did you say website traffic is down due to AI because people aren't searching the web? They're just living within, is that the premise? They're living within that LLM and getting the info they need?
So we got a comment here from RJ, kind of related, asking all new leads how they learned of us. So to kind of further validate the traffic that does get to the website. So thank you, RJ. Good to see you in the audience. Again, if you're interested, go to www.thelinkedbanker.com/happy hour. And on that page, there is a link. If you scroll down, it's on the left-hand side to join the conversation live, and I'll see you in the waiting room and you can come up and be part of the chit chat. So, but yeah, what's happening is websites used to answer all sorts of questions: top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. And you would get people in, what's a credit score? Well, you'd have to go to a bank website or a blue link on a Google search result to get an answer for that. Now, if you want to know how do I improve my credit score, you go to ChatGPT and you just have a conversation with it, or Claude, or I'm sorry, Claude. I got Claude on the brain because I've been using that quite a bit lately. But you just have a conversation and you don't need to go to a website. So the traffic that used to come to your blog at your bank's website about here's 5 ways that you can repair your credit score, maybe that information got pulled out and referred back into a large language model, and you helped educate somebody as part of that process and maybe got a footnote or a reference or a citation, but they maybe didn't need to come to your website to get that answer because they got it someplace else. But as they start exploring that deeper, learning about, okay, how do I repair a credit score? How do I do this? How do I do that? Now, all of a sudden, it's like, well, now I've repaired my credit score. I've got an understanding of a down payment. I know my different types of mortgages because I've learned all that information because of my AI buddy. Now, when I show up, which is 1 visit versus maybe 7 or 8 visits, I'm a lot more prepared. And that 1 visit is the 1 visit that actually is going to start the application versus 7 visits, and your traffic's been decreased, but that 1 visitor is much more valuable than all 7 were because 7 of those would not have converted or done anything. So does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. That makes a lot of sense. I was, just kind of went through doing some investigating myself, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, a big hello to Mary. So thank you for joining, and super excited that you were able to catch it live. And yes, $200,000 a month does seem like an awful lot of money, but of course they're starting with all the big whales and taking their money first. So that's the direction it's going to go. And then also just want to give a quick little shout out to Jen. Great to see you in San Diego last week as well. We did a little LinkedBanker Happy Hour selfie picture when we were together in the conference area. So that was pretty cool. So good to see you. So RJ is up on stage. What is up, my friend?
Hey, Eric, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Great conversation, by the way.
Yeah.
It's this stuff's fascinating, especially when you start putting the different marketing spin on it and how AI is doing it. But it goes back to something that we discuss all the time.
Yep.
It's becoming more and more critical, and it doesn't matter what part of the bank you're in or the company you're in, is your house, what I call house vocabulary around your definitions of what is a completed app. What is truly the definition of a completed app? Because the only way you're really going to be leverage AI and these tools in the future is to have a strong foundational base of what the metric is that you're measuring for improvement.
Yep.
So, which means, unfortunately, you have to go backwards before you go forward. And that's the most challenging thing for any of us to do in the world we live in, because of the pace we live in. However, your success rates will increase tremendously. So again, when somebody's talking within the bank or the institution and you say completed credit app or whatever the task might be, it's well defined. And that document can actually be a living document, but you want to track the revisions, of course, to it. And then you have your industry vocabulary as well, which everyone talks the same. So yeah. I just think it's a critical piece that is so overlooked, because we all build our own vocabulary in our each business or business unit, and sometimes it just doesn't cross-pollinate to the other verticals or other business units.
Yep, absolutely. And we struggle with that all the time when we do advertising and we're driving traffic back to a website. And we want to see, well, how many mortgage apps or how many checking accounts or how many savings accounts. We lose that trackability as soon as they click the button and they go into insert core provider here. I'm not going to pick on anybody, but you all know the names. And they jump in, and we work with those core providers and we say, hey, can we get Tag Manager inside of your system? Can we use some sort of a tracking code? Can we figure out how we can collect data so that our client can get an understanding of what the value is of the advertising money that they're spending? To your point, RJ, you got to go all the way back up the stream in order to figure out where we want to start. So button clicks don't mean anything if the cash register doesn't ring, right? And so that's the hardest part, is a lot of these third-party platforms in the banking and financial services space don't give you the ability. They hide behind, and I guess maybe there is some concern as it relates to putting code inside of a platform. They probably don't have the ability to sequester it. It's more universal, but that's their fault. They need to fix that in order to give their customers the ability to track and measure so that we can go back. And at the end of the day, what blows me away in all of this is if I'm using a platform and I can validate that that platform is producing results, that's going to be good for that platform, because they can go back to their client and go, see, we work. The platform is going to then have a higher likelihood that the customer is going to renew, and then we're going to get more money to spend to do advertising to drive traffic. And a lot of these platforms will charge on a per application basis, so they're making more money, and so everybody wins. The client gets more activity, the platform gets more revenue, and we get to assist in making that all happen. And,
but isn't that though, again, that heavy lifting work to be able to go backwards to figure that stuff out, and these conversations that we've never had before because we just did not have AI, and I'll use AI as a word, to be able to measure things. And a matter of fact, that's what I was in Dallas last week discussing. That's why I brought it up as a point, because even after that, that was the main takeaway of we're talking the same thing. We're just using different terms. And if you can't get the sales organization to put in data, like this is the age-old conversation, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Well, guess what? Now it's that much more important that everyone takes the time to put in good, credible information if you're really going to leverage these tools. And the winners that are using it, this client spends big money, Eric, what you were just talking about on Facebook leads, and they've really dialed it in now. So they're really, where to pour the fuel on, on the advertising versus not. And it all goes back to the data that when that application comes in, and then earmarking appropriately what bucket that lead came in so they can pull the different levers in advertising.
Yeah.
The right ICV.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Craig, you look like you're pulling a Patrick Swayze ghost on me and disappearing into the into the loft. It's beautiful. Come to the light. Do you need more? So
I don't know what's going on. It's funny. The pollen. I think it's just the pollen. I don't even have the window open, and the pollen is in here in Georgia.
There you go. There you go. So, I want to, as Craig says, double click on your other comment there. We started talking a little bit about kind of websites and Claude and whatnot, and then you threw Manus in there, which is now part of the Meta ecosystem. Speaking of Facebook, see how we're tying all these things together. But talk a little bit about Manus for those that aren't familiar with it. Why do you feel it's the best for website building, and what other stuff does it do?
I can build up a website world-class, Eric, that a guy with my experience level should not be able to do. What I mean by that is just conversationally talk to I built in OpenAI a Manus tool to build my prompts for me based off of research papers and knowledge papers, specifically to build out websites. So it walks through, and what Manus is, and I'm probably not explaining this correctly, but the way that I understand it and the way I explain it, it's a bunch of mini agents that you're building within Manus. And if you give it the specific task of what to do, it will go out and do it. The other cool thing about Manus, it's all self-contained in terms of you don't have to have a hosting company. They'll host it for you. You can actually buy the domain on Manus as well. And then you can program everything right down to your Google Analytics, your schema, your Google reviews to pull. It does everything that a WordPress site could do. And then it will actually help you in their panel, it'll help you with the SEO as well. So it'll actually scrape your website, measure it against the SEO of what market you're in, and then give you feedback to switch or to make the appropriate changes in terms of the content you're putting on the website. I just find it extremely user-friendly to use because everything, again, is self-contained. And then I can push it out to GitHub in terms of my repositories. But in the same respect, if I didn't want to and just keep it self-contained in Manus, I can. So there's no Netafly, there's no Vercel, there's no, it's all right there.
Yeah.
There's downside with that too, right? You're in one system, and I wasn't confident until Facebook bought them, Meta bought them, which I think is just naturally going to play into what Meta's trying to do because they were one of the first organizations that came out and said for advertising, you're going to have to use agents. There's going to be no more human interaction when it comes to ad dollars. I don't advertise on Facebook, so I can't validate that. But this is just the future in terms of you're going to have a bunch of different agents. And to your point back that you said around the core providers, I firmly believe that eventually the core providers are either going to get their stuff together and make these fixes, which they should, which is going to be very difficult for them.
Yeah.
Or institutions are going to figure out that they should be using Claude Code or these other tools and teaching the workforce how to leverage these to do their job and building out an ecosystem, because all it is a logic layer. As long as you have a truth of source in your core provider and that data is accurate, up here there's not as much risk as long as you're in a tenant and things of that nature to extrapolate the data that you're looking for.
Yeah. Again, protecting the innocent, but I know of a non big three or big four bank data center environment that they're aggressively looking at ways to kind of bring AI in. So when you're doing a conversion and you're switching from a Jack Henry or a Fiserv onto their platform, leveraging AI to help with that translation table. Like, this is how I process the deposit on one platform. How do I do it on this platform? And there's a low-tech way, even though you're using AI, where you take the manuals on how each of these platforms work and load those up and go, let's do a comparison and just kind of see how one platform works versus the other. We've talked to banks that have actually started doing that with some of their policies, where they're loading up policies and saying, okay, we've got our technology policy, we've got our marketing policy, we've got our sales policy, we've got our retail banking. Look at all four of these and identify if there's a discrepancy. And guess what? The marketing policy talks about, use of LinkedIn, and the sales policy says that, publicly facing salespeople need to have LinkedIn, but the IT policy says social networks are not allowed to be accessed on bank devices. So you got one policy saying you need to have a LinkedIn profile, and the other policy says you can't use it. So being able to find those sorts of things, and there's probably an agent, there's probably a way you could build that in Manus or Claude Code or any of the other platforms to do all of those things for you. So
I'd be curious. Is the discussion changing in boardrooms and in leadership, do you feel, relative to AI and
I would like to say yes. I will tell you, when I was at the ICBA last weekend, I did my session Sunday morning. I asked my same 3 questions. How many of you are using it, have never used it before? And I had 3 hands go up. I bet I probably had 50 bankers in the room. It was 8:30 on a Sunday morning, so I get it. But I had probably 3 bankers raise their hand, said they've never used AI. And to their credit, they were in a session about how to use AI to be more human, was my topic. But then I said, how many of you are using it monthly? Couple hands. How many of you using it every week? A lot more hands. How many use it every day? A lot more hands. And so daily or weekly is certainly the popular choice. Mm-hmm. But the last question I ask is, how many of you have seen your policy or your vision statement and have received any training from your bank on how to use AI? And it's still about 10 or 15% of the room. So 80% of the room is using AI on a daily or at least weekly basis, but 15% has gotten training on how to use it. They don't have a clue. And that might be a little harsh because some of them are doing a lot of self-learning and figuring it out, but they don't know, are they violating the bank's policies and procedures? Because, should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? What platform should I use? What should I? So I think whether that starts all the way at the board level or that's more senior management level, the need for training and education on this, because you all know that it's not just a better version of Google. You couldn't build a freaking world-class website. Like you said, you can't build an agent. You can't do the stuff on Google like you can with what AI has given us. And if you don't unlock that box and figure out how that works, man, you're driving a Lamborghini like 20 miles an hour. You're not getting the full benefit from it, which is insane. So anyway, that was a little bit of a ramble / rant on my part, but I felt that needed to come out. So I don't know, Josh, from your perspective at like a senior management board level at the credit union, would you say there's kind of an understanding of where AI is at and why it's important and why the organization needs to lean into it? Or is there some fear and some worry? And if so, what's that look like?
I think it really depends on the institution. So if you have somebody who's really technology forward and understands it and can explain it well and ease those fears, there's a higher adoption rate. I think that in those that don't have it, they are fearful of it and usually just shut it down. I think back to your story of whoever it was that used to work at the bank and then go across the street to McDonald's to use ChatGPT and come back.
Yep.
So I think the biggest thing that banks and credit unions can do right now is just because they're going to be behind on it. It's just the nature of the industry. There's that fear of the unknown, just like there was with social media, just like there was with websites when they were new. Everything's kind of tiptoed in. Banks aren't, and credit unions both don't rush into anything. But at minimum, a policy. If they can make a policy around it so that way the employees can know, am I violating, something? Should I be doing this? At least have the policy and then hopefully the wherewithal to provide that training and expertise. I've not really seen it so much yet throughout the industry, but we are in it because I'm kind of the loud, squeaky wheel, like, hey, we need to be doing this. But not everyone has a me, so.
Yeah. Well, and the danger zone that I think some banks and credit unions might fall into is, for years, we've been talking about online security and privacy and confidentiality. And what do we say? Make sure if you're going to be visiting online banking, it's got to say HTTPS. That means the site's secure. And when you go to ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or Gemini, they all start with HTTPS. They don't start with HTTP, they start with HTTPS. And if that employee has been listening and training and paying attention and looking for HTTPS because that means it's secure, they're going to connect the dots and go, oh, HTTPS://chatgpt.com. That's a secure site. I can put my customer information in here. I can upload member data. I can upload transaction information and analyze it because it's secure, because my IT department told me HTTPS means it's secure. That's not the same thing. And
Right.
because our employees don't understand that is not their fault. We need to teach them that that's different. And if we're not even just saying that much, the door is wide open for someone to innocently start loading up data, thinking that they're doing it because it's secure. Well, it's not HTTP. It's got an S behind it. That means it's secure. That's what my IT director said. So what's the problem? Why can't I put all my customer or member information into ChatGPT and analyze it and look for the next best product recommendation or who's likely going to be leaving me or, who I should call next or who's the most profitable? Yeah, that's a big red flag. The assumption is gonna come back and bite them big time. So, all right, I'm totally happy to stay on the AI bus and keep chatting about that. But if there's anything else that we want to talk about, or maybe another angle from an AI perspective that we want to dive into, I'm happy to pick up another topic of conversation. Or if anyone listening has a topic that you're interested in having us chat about, if you don't want to come up on stage, that's totally cool. But you could throw your question or comment into the chat and we could catch it there. So looks like we've got some folks catching up with each other in the chat, which is great. So it's good to see everybody making connections, because that's really what the happy hours are about, is just bringing people together for some cool networking. So cool. So what else you guys got that you want to talk about?
I was loving the conversation in regards to the marketing and SEO.
Okay.
That's never going to stop, and it's going to be ever challenging and changing.
Yeah. Well, I guess to kind of continue that, let me throw another topic related to that. So while I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and I'm debating whether or not I should say where I'm at, because it might sound like a flex, but I was in Hawaii. But while I was there, I had a client call and we had a conversation, and his question was, do I have the ability to load my website in Markdown format? And so if you're not familiar with what Markdown format is, inside of all of these language models, when you're done creating all of your content, you can export that information. You can either likely pull it out as plain text, you can pull it out as a Word document, you can get it as a PDF, or you can get it in Markdown, which is easy to then put into other platforms. And it uses symbols and codes to be able to demonstrate headings and subheadings. And it's become kind of a universal way to work inside of AI and allow for that to be consistently transferred between platforms. I don't know. Would you say that'd be a good way to describe it, RJ? So
spot on.
Yeah. And so the reason that Markdown is also important is as we enter this agentic world where we likely as humans will all end up having agents or a series of agents that will do stuff for us. I got a website agent. I got an email agent. I got a webinar agent. I got a research agent. I've got a competitive analysis agent, and they're all trained to do things. The reason that he was curious on whether or not his content on his website was going to be available in Markdown is he felt in the very near future, there's going to be people that are going to have agents that are going to go out and look for information on banking. So he wants, not just from an SEO perspective, but it's almost like dark SEO because that never shows up in any sort. It's not a search engine, but it's an agent that somebody would use or build or buy or lease or license that essentially crawls around and gathers information. And if you don't make your information as easy as possible to be able to consume, you may not be consumed when that agent is doing its research and going back to the human that basically enabled it to give its report. Even to the extent that he's talking about building an API so that if an agent wants to plug in and get a constant feed of information from that bank, he wants to give the ability to API into his bank's website to be able to basically get, it's almost like the next generation of an RSS feed, if you're familiar with that from way back in the blogging days. And I kind of made a mental note of that here we are, end of February. We got our very first question about markdown content. So we're talking to our development team and trying to figure out, is that something we need to start baking in, because there was always the mobile version of a website versus mobile responsive. And then there was the progressive web apps to be able to deliver that through news feeds. Is this the next thing as it relates to web functionality? So I'm going to throw that out there and see, because that kind of is still related to, I guess, search or visibility or accessibility to website content, and see if that sparks any other thoughts. Don't everybody talk at once.
It makes me wonder if we're not even designing websites for people anymore, if we're designing them now truly just for robots.
And Josh, you just made a great comment, and Eric, you did earlier, in regards to any bank or any institution looking at making a transition from a core operating system.
Yep.
And I'm having this conversation all the time. It's one thing to look at your legacy systems, but if you're looking at it, Josh, to your point, which is spot on, the future, we really need to be looking at it differently in terms of the agents, and markdowns is huge in terms of the instructions for the website, as well as you build your skills in markdowns and things of that nature. So it's completely foreign to everyone of how to use it. I'm still learning about it, but it definitely is going to be the future, Eric. You're spot on with that.
Yeah. Yep. You're not wrong, Josh. I think, and I'm going to be headed out to social media marketing world in April, and I'll be at the Financial Brand in April. And I suspect there's going to be a lot of conversation at both of those events on AI. And I think, there's going to be a lot of that, where as a human, do I really want to spend my time browsing websites, or do I want to go to a platform like Notebook LM and say, hey, I want to buy a house, I don't know where to go, find me some info, and then create a podcast and tell me about it and make a recommendation where I need to go. And Notebook LM is the visitor, or a service like it, or an agent that you create, and it grabs all the information. And then your male, female host, hey, Eric, we've just got done completing a research project for you, and we've crawled all the websites and looked at all the options, and we've come back with some recommendations that we think you might be interested in to buy your new house. So let's go ahead and unpack this and see what we found. And so, yeah, Collier, exactly. That's the exact question, is at what point is a website no longer needed? I think a website probably will be always needed, but will it be needed the way that it is now? We had a bank, maybe 15 years ago, when we were building their website, question whether or not we needed a navigation menu, and said, when I go to Google, there's no navigation menu. There's no, do you want to have information about, flights and travel, or, you've got a search box, you put in what you're looking for, and Google brings it back to you. And I think one of the things that we're going to see, at least from a website perspective, is the typical drop-down mega menu: personal banking, business banking, wealth management, about us, checking accounts, savings accounts, mortgage loans, commercial loans. I think that information is still going to exist, but I think having an interface that's an AI agent that's trained, a language model, a conversational assistant, that knows all your information on your website, you're just going to go to it and you're going to say, hey, I'm interested in buying a house. What do you got for me? And let the agent have a conversation with you. Oh, that's great. Tell me your name. Hey, my name's Josh. Hey, great, Josh. Good to meet you. My name's, whatever. Tell me about what you want. Are you, what do you want? Are you looking to buy a house, refinance, going to build a house? So you just have a conversation with the website based off of all the information that it knows. As people are getting more comfortable having conversations with AI, you bake in a voice, on my Meta Ray-Ban glasses, I got John Cena talking to me. When I put those on, it's the wrestler John Cena, and he basically says whatever he wants to say, which is pretty mind blowing. So I don't know. Website may or may not continue to be a thing, or certainly going to evolve. I think that's for sure. And then the visitors to it, what are they going to be looking like? Are they going to be looking like you and me? Or are they going to be looking like ones and zeros, just coming in and collecting information and reporting it back to the mothership? So, yeah, some really good questions, Collier. Thank you for tossing all those in. So, anybody disagree or have a different angle on that? I'm curious.
Seems like that's the way it's heading, man.
Yeah. So, Craig bounced. Good to see you. Sorry you couldn't make it for the full duration, but we got 9 minutes, so we're bringing it home. And I'll tell you from an agency perspective, we think about these things. We build bank websites. We build, digital marketing solutions. And so, whether you're working inside of an organization, you're serving organizations, everyone has to evolve. Everyone's got to keep up with the Joneses. I think, and I'm not just like fluffing your feathers, RJ, but, I've had the pleasure of chatting with you before AI was really a thing and seeing where you're at now and the words that you're saying and the platforms that you're familiar with and just the knowledge that you have. You've taken some pretty intense time to reinvent yourself. And I think that's pretty amazing. And I'm super pumped for what you've been able to do and kind of reinvent yourself. So,
I honestly appreciate that compliment from the bottom of my heart, because the hard work that we've put into this.
Absolutely.
The challenge now, and I think we all face this daily when you're in this type of group that is forward-looking, things of that nature.
Yep.
It's just so darn frustrating, because when I say frustrating, that when you understand how these tools can be used and the value that it can really bring to organizations in serving your customer base, forget about everything else. Just keep the Northern Star as your customer base and what a community bank does and how it serves the community, and how you can leverage AI to free up your commercial lenders to be more in the marketplace and doing spreadsheets or things of that nature.
Yeah.
No one taking action over it, and only wants to point out the fears and the noise, and the noise just continues to get louder and louder and louder. And it's harder for these bankers or anyone to understand who they trust and who to believe, because is it a tech vendor just trying to sell me something? Is it another consultant that's just billing me hours? So I'm excited. You mentioned it earlier, and I was going to say something in terms of performance-based consulting and performance-based partnering. I really think you're going to see that come forward a lot. Now, granted, the legacy organizations will kick and scream because they don't want that. It goes against their model. But in the same respect, that's why you're seeing these organizations charge per credit approval or charge per funded transaction, where you win, I win, we all win. And we're going to continue to improve our software or whatever we're delivering to you, because we have a vested interest, not just pay us our maintenance charge and we're good to go. I hope that I see that. But I appreciate the compliment. It's fun to learn every day, and it never ends.
Yeah, that's for sure. Definitely a fire hose. So we got a new face up on stage with us.
How's it going?
God, good to see you. So for those that might not be familiar, I know people are familiar with Josh and Craig and RJ, but quick little intro about who you are, what you do, where you're from, and then what's on your mind.
Yeah, Collier Clark. I'm from Digital Onboarding. I live here in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm I'm pretty deep into the AI scene here. We have a really good local group called Birmingham AI.
Cool.
It's on really good seminars and breakout rooms and sessions. And as soon as I saw this and heard y'all talking about AI, I was like, I'm all in for this.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I've been a fan of digital onboarding for a while, and I think we've even got a couple of clients that use your service to be able to help them get on board and to kind of start their banking relationship and to make sure that they're engaged and, get them using services within the first 90 days. Because otherwise, if they're not sticky, then they're not going to be sticky long term. And I know I'm preaching to the choir there, but
you're handling the pitch for me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. So one last little joke here before we go, but he looks like Craig's going to develop his own language model. I'm not saying that Craig needs a girlfriend or a job or a home, but this could very well be the next language. Like, hey, I'm making a move. Go right ahead and build a podcast. And so anyway, glad you put example only there, Craig. We don't want to get you in trouble or divorced or anything like that. So, but yeah, too funny. So, well, I guess you posted up a couple of comments, Collier, about, is a website even needed anymore? Is it something that anybody's even going to go to? I didn't know if you had any other comments kind of rolling around in your noggin while you're up on stage to kind of unpack that a little bit further.
Yeah, I mean, I was having the conversation with my wife just the other day. She's pretty big into the tech scene as well. And it's, at what point are we just going to talk to our AI system, our chatbot, and have it go negotiate on our behalf?
Yep.
With other systems that have been created that are specific, have the knowledge from a different company. And
yeah.
It just seems like it's a natural progression. I don't know if that's where it's going, but as these AI crawl sites and pull information, at what point do we say, okay, this is now my information and I'm tired of somebody taking that and utilizing it? And now I've kind of create my own AI that blocks that. And you have to negotiate it on, behalf of my entity.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. At the Maycon conference last year, Marketing AI conference with SmarterX and the Marketing AI Institute, a speaker was on stage, and I think I've shared this before, but he put up B2B on the screen. Everybody's like, you know what this is? And everybody's like, yeah, B2B. Okay. B2C, you know what that is? And then he put up A to A. And that's exactly what you just said is we're all going to have agents talking to somebody else's agents, and it's the digital version of, have my people call your people and we'll set something up. Well, our people are now going to be these agents that are just going to connect. They're going to learn. And most likely they're going to be smarter and better and faster at it than we are, so that we can go back. And to kind of tie this back around to my session that I did at ICBA, it was like, similar to what you just said, RJ, is like, how do we figure out whether it's an agent or a process or a prompt or a tool or whatever, to be able to take all of the stuff that we don't need to be doing, but we've had to do because there was no other way to do it, and be able to get to I want to go drive to Ann Arbor and take RJ out for coffee or grab dinner or, spend time in person doing the stuff that the AI can't do, and be more human with the folks that really matter. They're the ones that are spending the money and making the ultimate decision. Yeah, an agent's going to come back with a recommendation, but you get 3 or 4 recommendations, you're still going to go through a vetting process, I would suspect, Collier, before you plunk down your money or sign the mortgage app or decide to buy that vehicle. So it's, it's pretty interesting. So one other, thank you, Mary. Got a large comment here. So, and it's got some dots to it, which means there's not enough room to put it all. So I'll read it. It says, regarding search engines losing popularity, I absolutely agree with this. Search engine thing and Google are search time consuming and compared to asking ChatGPT. In fact, my dad is famous for always saying, Google it. Now he's retired and spends a lot of time researching on the internet. And I now respond with, Google is a thing of the past and not near as trustworthy. ChatGPT is much more reliable and useful and more credible if you use the correct prompts. I love the way you finish that. Use the correct prompts. Be very leery of hallucinations still. Check your sources still. It's getting better, and the different models that are coming out are doing a better job of checking themselves. But we all have the benefit, because Mary, you've been in the business world for a while, and so have all of we. The sniff test is still very, very important. And the younger folks that are coming out of school, that are writing their term papers and doing their research, they've got nothing to sniff with because they have no experience. They don't know if something is BSing them because they don't know what BS looks like. They aren't trusting it. So there's that cross-generational mentorship or training that I think is also equally important, to be able to, maybe help that next generation of workers or colleagues to be able to understand what is or what isn't correct or right or accurate in the age of AI. So we are at the top of the hour. It is a happy hour, so that is our 60 minutes, but I'm happy to entertain any final thoughts or questions that anybody else might have before we adjourn. Anybody else got anything else?
I'll just add on to that. I just absolutely love that comment, Eric, and it's all plays into the other topic I'm very passionate about, which is entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And the entrepreneurs within banks specifically that know the processes, the procedures, the inputs and the outputs. If I was a bank leader, I would be identifying my entrepreneurs right now and going to them and making sure that they're well situated in the organization, because those individuals will be the game changers inside your organization.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be able to point at the challenges, where the friction points are, and then be able to deploy different tools to be able to fix that. And they will leave, just like I left corporate banking, when your hands are tied and you see that these tools are evolving to a point where they're beneficial to you. And just because you're scared of the future, it doesn't make sense. So if I was a bank leader, I'd really be looking at, who has the tribal knowledge. And they're going to be fearful of giving it to you. It's the elephant in the room. But in the same respect, if you have that strategy, which we teach around, this is not a replacement of human employees. This is only an adjunct to help you. Now, if people self-select and we figure out ways that we can pivot, we're going to do that.
Sure.
That's what we should do. We have to evolve. But it's that much more important. The contextual knowledge will make you look, if you don't have it, make you look very foolish very quick, if you just believe what the LLM's giving you as an output.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So, Sean, if you're still there, I don't know if you are or not, but thank you for the kind words. Maybe we can get you back up on stage at some point. I know you've joined us for the discussion, and if you've got Mayo after your name, you know exactly why I love having you come up on stage, because you're plugged in and you know a lot about what's going on and the banking and the financial world. So maybe we can get that to be the case on the next show. So lastly, if you're interested in being part of the LinkedBanker community at all, it's a mentor and mastermind program. Our mastermind last month, we had Ron Shevlin join us, and he spent an hour with our members talking about his latest report from Cornerstone Advisors, what's going on in banking. We've got Allison Netzer showing up next week for our mastermind, talking about her new book, which is the second edition of Think Like a Brand, Not Like a Bank. I loved the first one. I love the second one even more. And Allison is just a total sweetheart and tells some really good stories. And I'm really excited about that. So if you're interested in any of that, being part of the mentoring and the mastermind community, feel free to visit the join page, hit me up on LinkedIn, reach out. I'd love to share what we're doing there and give you some more info. But to Josh and RJ and Craig, I know you've dropped, and Collier, thanks for coming up on stage and being part of the discussion and talking. So hopefully we'll catch you. We go live the second Thursday of every month at 5 p.m. Eastern time for our happy hours. And we'll hopefully see you on the next one, if not somewhere in between before we get there. So bye for now. See you, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.